Welcome to Emotional Sobriety, the next step in recovery, with Dr. Alan Berger and Thom Rutledge. When's the last time you guys had to deal with a flea infestation?
Been a while, but man, they're tough.
I've been having one for the last few weeks, and I talked to a friend who has it yesterday, and I'm like, "How long did it take for you to get rid of them?" And he's like, "Weeks," but it felt like months. And I thought that was very like an apt description of it, because like it's all I can think about. I've just been like dying over here. So that's how much I love being with you guys, is that I've got fleas jumping on me while I'm doing
really
it.
know what you're talking about, but
Joe's with us again. We were all together last Friday at an event of his.
The Zoom group is called Growing and Understanding. And they're, like a mixed bag of people in recovery, all looking to, challenge their own thoughts and look at new ways of seeing things. And it's a great group from all around the world, and they look at history stuff. They certainly went down the rabbit hole with Bill Shaberg's writing the big book and enjoyed that. One of their groups is going back to Scott Peck's The Road Less Traveled, right? So the new books, the classics, they've got an interest in all of it. So emotional sobriety is certainly something well within their interests.
I'll just say that I didn't grow or understand anything on Friday, but I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I grew and understood a little bit.
Yeah, and you can jump in any time and pick it up, right? It's not there's an insider's crowd. Yeah.
I forget sometimes that I was born a group therapist. I think, Alan, you were too. It's like you end up doing so many other things. You just forget how comfortable you are when you get into a good interactional group.
Well, there was a little bit of some healthy discourse about this notion that emotional sobriety is at odds as a principle with alcoholism, our understanding of alcoholism, or maybe like an earlier understanding of it.
Oh yeah.
Where the problem was the drink.
Alan was making somebody nervous. That's right.
He was not coming in asking about anything.
That's a good point. Yeah.
He was trying to correct us, is what he was doing. And he was coming from a place, you're right. He felt threatened in some way that the message we were sending out was somehow anti-recovery or anti-disease model of alcoholism.
Well, and we've talked about that a little bit since then, and I think between all of us, it's like we may have a little bit different points of view, but it's like I think we understand from where at least we came from earlier on. The three older guys here, it's like we understand where that comes from, but it's from the old thinking, or like what you're talking about, Alan, the first step.
Well, let's articulate though. What was his point? Was that it's an allergy of the body, right? It's that idea that the problem is the drink. And once I get
what he objected to specifically was when I said that we suffer from a growth disorder, that we're stuck, not sick. And his point was, no, we're sick.
See, and that's what I'm saying. I grew up in AA. I grew up around the guys that basically they could be 25, 30 years sober, and they would go like, okay, well, this is what I think, but you can't trust me because I'm a sick alcoholic, And so I grew up believing that you just had to keep thinking of yourself as sick in order to be safe. And I think that's what the guy, if I understand what you're saying, I think that's what he was worried about.
There is I don't want to use it as a derogatory word, but of fundamentalism in AA, and I don't use it as a derogatory word because people are thriving with it, right? And it's a strict diet of 164 pages, the original writings from Bill Wilson, and they're not interested in what he had to say in the 12 and 12 or in letters he wrote to people about emotional sobriety, because it was perfect, right? That for them. And
it saved their life.
And the proof is their recovery, right? But, and they see anything else as sort of watered down. And whether it's secular recovery or whether it's letting the druggies talk about fentanyl, getting involved in, public information or things like that. But, it's sort of a very cocooned type of recovery. And again, effective, but to me, it's a repetitive strain disorder. Like I just couldn't do that for my recovery, right? I need to sort of, go forward, sometimes go back and review, but, just sort of be more fluid and spontaneous in my recovery. And other people want to be more orderly.
What I recognized in that comment anyway was fear, and I remember that fear, and it is I think it's fear that if we stop thinking of ourselves as sick, then we're in trouble.
I just remember from we had an episode with Carl Eric Fisher, who Joe turned us on to, a couple months ago, and part of the impetus for him writing his book, The Urge, about the history of addiction, was he wanted to find out what happened to him. It was like a detective, it was like an investigation of the case of him going so far off the rails with his addiction, and I think as I investigate what happened to me, with my story, I know that it didn't just start with the substance, or it wasn't just the sickness of my bonding with, the drugs and alcohol as like a solution to something. You know what I mean? There was I like Alan's, the way he puts it, it's a growth disorder. There was just something, early on, like a predilection towards that type of behavior that was instilled in me from earlier.
Well, yeah, and I think the fear is that if someone doesn't continue to accept their powerlessness, meaning that I have a disease, and as Bill said, we're like men who have lost their legs. We're never going to grow new ones. No. And, I don't argue that. I'm not going to go out and try to drink. I know that would be a total disaster for me. And so it's problematic though when we start to think about stage 2 recovery and treating stage 2 recovery as though it has to be linked to stage 1. And there's a problem there. See, stage 1 recovery is about breaking the bonds of our addiction. No question about it. We have to do that. That's, physical sobriety before emotional sobriety. I don't think
lift the hood before you work on the engine. It's like physical sobriety gives us access. I mean, we have to, and as soon as we relapse, any one of us, access is gone. That becomes the priority again.
And most relapses are because nobody lifts up the hood and looks at the engine. Yeah. People try to just stay sober on steps 1 and 12. And, Joe, the only thing I would disagree with you when you say it's efficient or effective, people having that fundamentalist view. It is better than what they were doing. There's no question about it. But it doesn't mean that they have optimal recovery. See, I think that's the issue that's being addressed here. Bill talks about being rocketed into the 4th dimension. And if you're going to get rocketed into the 4th dimension, you cannot just hang on that laurel that I have a disease, and as long as I'm not drinking, I'm okay. I mean, that is an important thing. No question about it. No way would I ever minimize the importance of that. But like Thom just said, I love what you said. It opens the hood. Now let's listen to the engine. What's misfiring? What do we need to change the spark?
Of course, I love metaphors, so now I just added to that metaphor. Try to drive around Los Angeles with your hood up,
Well, there you go too, right?
That's the problem of ingrown eyeballs.
But you're see, this is where the growth disorder thing makes a sense. It's just about getting better and better and better and continuing to think. It's what my analogy there would be. Bill Wilson would upset old time AAers just like Jesus would upset Christians. I mean, those guys would freak everybody out. Yeah.
And see, I think that's the other part of this. See, you really see in Bill's writing the evolution of his development, right? You really see his growth and stuff, and that he did mature and he started to realize things that I think were very important. Now, who am I to judge? If somebody is just doing great on step 1 and 12, and that's what they want in their life, they have that choice.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. Go for that. But I think a lot of times people put these, what I would call false ceilings on their recovery because of their resistance to looking at what's under the hood.
No, true.
That also, it really comes down to, meeting people where they're at and empowering them to choose what they want and need. There are so many paths in recovery. I know some people who have done the work but call sobriety a win-lose proposition. If you stayed sober today, you're tied for first place for everybody in this organization, right? And if you didn't stay sober today, maybe tomorrow you'll be tied for first place. And plenty of people just want to get their life back. I always describe, when people talk to me about the steps, I said that the reason I worked the steps was because sobriety didn't solve my problems, it exposed them.
Wow.
And for some
That's
people, they get the
great.
pink
That's
cloud
great.
of sobriety, and everything comes back, right? Their work comes back. They've got recovery capital galore, right? They've got, the family's back, the work's back. And other people, it's, oh my God, these are the things that drove me to drink in the first place. And why I worked the steps was they were the best therapy available to me at the time in my price range. And for lots of people, that's not their experience, right?
Well, the other thing that brings up is as a therapist, this brings me back to the idea of as a therapist. One of the things I had to learn earlier in my career as a therapist, that everybody, and I've been in a lot of therapy, and I've been, and I always say like, and most of it I volunteered for. It's like, but a lot of therapy done me a lot of good, and it's like, and I realized at some point, I don't even think anybody pointed this out to me. I think I just realized this. One of the ways I was frustrating myself as a therapist is I was making a ridiculous assumption that everybody that came to see me wanted to do what I was doing, to go as deep as I have gone to that. And I'm not saying that's better than. I'm just saying I kept going and going and going, and I realized after a while everybody doesn't want to go that way. Some people are fine. Just, you know this, Alan. Sometimes people just want to come in and solve one problem, and then we may never see them again, or we may see them again later when the shit hits the fan. But it's like that's part of what we provide. That's a service that we provide.
Well, to your point, Joe, I think some of the hardest times I've had in sobriety is that recognition, that feeling that it's like I feel like I'm right back where I started. Like I'm reminded of, my unformed adolescent, frustrated, insecure, it comes up a lot lately in, my romantic relationships and my relationships with my parents, and my relationships to, the perfectionism of, artistic things, to finance. It's like I feel like I'm a teenager still, and cobbling together a program for how to navigate those things. And, the drugs and alcohol were a mask that or they were a way of avoiding having to deal with any of it. Part of me getting better is denying myself that solution, quote unquote. And so what does that mean? It means that I'm still in the weeds somewhat. I'm making progress, but I don't know. I feel like, I feel a little bit underwater, I think on a lot of those things, every day, just trying to do it. But I know enough to know that, I wasn't making any progress with it, just getting loaded all the time. It just felt like I was, on my best days, in that life. It felt like I was maybe, but hell no. Yeah, I was not making progress.
You remind me of something someone said, which I thought really described addiction well. they said alcohol was a solution that almost worked. Like they never got the relief they were looking for, but there was always this promise that it would eventually, right?
Yeah, that's another good one. That's a good one, Joe. You're
No
full.
kid, that's good.
I stole that one. At least I can recollect it
Well,
well
it's not
enough
it's
that
not
I
as
can,
good as
I can
yours,
say
Joe.
that.
I promise.
Well, I've got, just be aware, because I'll do this to you too. The first time I would say, as my friend on the podcast, Thom said, and I would quote him. The next time, as I once heard, and then from there on in, as I've always said.
Just very briefly, because it's we're on July 23rd, and this kind of ties in a little bit to what we were saying. I'll just like abbreviate, but this is from Joe's Beyond Belief book. It's the quote at the top of the page is, "The only time you have too much fuel is when you're on fire," and this is attributed to unknown. And then I'll just scroll to the bottom. It says, "What are the problems that my addiction was hiding? Do I handle or avoid them now? Do I still overindulge in certain behavior? What consequences do I face when I overindulge?"
Joe's a master of one of the great things we all need to get better and better and better at in relationship with our recovery, and that is the good questions. It's like, I call those what he uses. I call them magnet questions. You don't just ask them one time. They attract information, and you can ask them every single day of your life, and you're going to get more information. And you don't have to answer for other people. You just need to tell them the question.
The other thing I found is nobody objects to being asked a question. If I make a statement, if I make a claim, that can be contentious. But to ask a question, people are receptive to that in most cases. The whole idea of that Friday meeting we were on, Growing in Understanding, is, we're going to be exposed to like opinions and views that rub us the wrong way, but we're intentionally exposing ourselves to these things to grow, right? It's an echo chamber isn't a good way to grow for me.
Okay. Well, the magnet questions are really the opposite of the rhetorical question that we ask, that are just not good for they're not good for anybody.
It's got to be sincere, absolutely, because it's going to rub people the wrong way, because they'll see right through you if it's a rhetorical question.
We aim rhetorical questions at people.
It is necessary for our growth to grind with someone that has a different idea, that has a different position. And I mean, we don't grow in an echo chamber, because then we're just, hearing what we're already thinking, and to be challenged and to look at things, which I thought it was great. For me, I would have liked for him to be a little bit more honest with what he was doing, rather than come under the guise of asking a question. He really wanted to make a statement about what was going on. And he finally said that after it was going on. But that's a struggle we all have, is just really owning what's going on. But I think it was a good thing in terms of it forces us to articulate that this is stage 2 recovery we're talking about. We can have a whole discussion on what stage 1 recovery is about. And there's a lot of podcasts out there that do that talk about what do you need to do to keep the plug in the jug? What do you need to do to honor your powerlessness over alcohol, no matter what path that you go down? Whether you turn your life over to the care of God, or whether you find a higher self inside of yourself to listen to, whatever path you go down, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of people that talk about that. We're not in any way saying that that's not important. I think that's the most important. It's very important. Like you said, you gotta open the hood before you can look at the engine.
Well, the just occurred to me what you're saying, and this is a good point, because when we talk about this stuff, new things that occur to us is that interestingly or ironically or whatever it happens to be, it's like we don't, where we are doing this with this continued recovery, we don't stop with we're powerless over alcohol. If you look at this, I'll kind of reference to my Stoicism study. It's like we're in the process of making a long fucking list of things that we're powerless over. All the things that we cannot control are things we're powerless over, and that is about letting go, quit wasting energy into things that you cannot change. And so I mean, somebody says you're powerless over alcohol, and I go, yeah, in a big way, and among many other things.
Well, right. Well, what you're saying is, you
Yeah.
never stop. You never stop making that list of things we're powerless.
You never stop
over.
recognizing how powerless you are.
Right, but then the second part is, you fill that vacuum with the things that you do exercise agency over. And
Yeah.
we did, and I have a group that we went through this book by a guy named Wayne Lickerman on powerlessness. And then when I was over in Dublin, it was funny though. I ran into some people who really liked Wayne Lickerman, and they were reading his book and stuff. But yeah, it's powerlessness as like the core of a recovery program. I seem to be running into a lot, and it's kind of beautiful.
Anytime we take anything too rigidly or literally, when I do, I find myself most amusing, right? And I want to, because I'm a word person, right? I want universal agreement on this word, what it means, and we can move on from there, right? But that's not how people are. Powerless is one of those abstract ideas. I mean, you can absolutely.
But Joe, being a word person is a really good thing in the sense that we also recognize that a lot of disagreements happen because people define things differently.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
Alan knows, I wrote a treatment program, a workbook called Recovery Decision. And it began with the fact that I had, talked to so many people who'd been through treatments, nice treatment programs. And I would ask them the question, has anybody in a treatment program ever asked you if you thought you were an alcoholic? And the answer was no. Nobody asked them because they were in a treatment for alcoholism, so they were an alcoholic. And it's like, and so when I would be in the initial power struggle, so to speak, of like, I'm doing an assessment of alcoholism, and I'm saying you are too, and they're saying am not, and I'm saying are too, am not. What I finally realized was, I say, how do you define alcoholism? And guess what? According to their definition, they're not. According to my definition, they are. So it's like we always define the terms first because that's, and I do that with couples all the time. It's like you don't disagree nearly as much as you think you do.
Yeah.
You're just using different words.
Yeah, that's right. And getting and they're emotionally charged words, right? So the listening
right.
ends.
That's me. Yeah. I'm the worst. Yeah.
Yeah. But like Bill Wilson himself, introduced the idea of powerlessness and later said, we won't fear anything, even alcohol, right? Just we can be around it. We can, and his whole definition of alcoholism was we're powerless over the first drink even before it's in our body. And that's where he sort of was on the other side of the table from Silkworth, who said, we're fine, but once we have it in us, there's this, well, he used an analogy of us having what's the word he uses? Allergy.
Mm-hmm.
And again, as a metaphor, that's fine.
Yeah.
But Bill says, no, we're powerless. Like we don't know it, but we're about to crash, right?
Well, the other thing, and I was saying this to Alan earlier, and I can't remember if we were on the air already or not, but if you look back at Jelenich's original disease concept, and he identifies different kinds of alcoholism by the Greek alphabet, and by the end of the book, he said, I'm paraphrasing, I don't know the quote, but he said basically there really are more varieties of alcoholism alcoholism than there are letters in the Greek alphabet. It's like, and they're not all, I believe I'm correct in thinking of the one we all look to is thinking the gamma alcoholic, the gutter alcoholic, that I'm not. And so that I kept her from recovery by using that, as many people do. I'm not that. I'm still going to work.
Right.
I still get up in the morning. I was an alcohol and drug treatment center director. It's so I couldn't be, an alcoholic because I didn't fit that definition. But there are so many definitions. It's just, it's very subjective assessment. Yeah.
You know what the paradox that always kind of confuses me is, I hear it a lot, is when somebody in the program or somebody recovering is really up against something, really struggling, and then they say, but I just come back to powerlessness and I just recognize my powerlessness. And it's like a balm, for the whatever the distress it is that they're feeling. But it's so counterintuitive, because you would think when you're up against a challenge, wouldn't the idea to be to rise over it, or kind of punch through it? But the powerlessness, the kind of I'm going to sit down. It's just still, I know that there's truth in there, but it's just hard for me to wrap my brain around.
Part of the remedy to recognizing powerlessness is practicing acceptance. And that's an action. For me to say, let go of that, Thom, you can't do anything with it. There is relief.
Well,
limits. We have
where
limits.
We come back to, the heart of emotional sobriety is having an appropriate and honest relationship to reality. And if that's the reality of who we are, which I don't have any doubt anymore, I have accepted to my innermost self that, I'm unable to control my use of alcohol. And so that's acceptance now. That step I've taken 100%. That opened the door, like you said. Once I could accept that, then now I was able to take a first pass through the steps and see the damage that my addiction has caused in my life. What we're saying with stage 2 recovery or emotional sobriety is that the second pass through the steps is looking at how our emotional immaturity or our stuckness, whatever you want to call it, our emotional dependence has caused an impossible way of life. Or once again, how we're powerless over that until we get a hold of it and accept that, look, I'm immature. I need to start growing up. And that's what Bill's letter to me was so targeted on saying is, my God, is, what do you call it? My failure to grow up emotionally and spiritually. And this is at 21 years in his recovery. He's talking about that he's realized how difficult that was. And it is difficult when we're emotionally dependent. It's stuck.
Well, no, you said the other. Tell me, I think this was you that said it, Alec. When you first read that letter, you said you hated it.
I couldn't stand it.
I got that, man. It's like it's perfect.
Wait, when you read Bill's letter,
I do not want that to be true.
Wait. When you read Bill's letter, Alan, you hated it at first?
1971, my sponsor Thom gave me that with Sermon on the Mount, the book. I'm afraid to tell you who I am. I'm afraid to tell you.
Ernie Larson.
You won't love me. I know it was by some I think a nun actually, or a priest. And then I got the 12 and 12 in the big book. And from him. And so that letter was in there. I read that letter and I didn't like it. I just did not like it. I couldn't relate to it. I didn't want to relate to it. I didn't like it.
It's funny when we talk about our history with feelings. I see it in your face every time you say it. You make a face. You travel back in that time. It's it. It's like, ugh. But
why? Why did you not like it, Alan?
I did not want to admit my dependency. I thought that it was unmarine-like.
Unmarine-like, that's right.
Unmasculine-like. I mean, I did not want to think of myself. I saw dependency as weakness. And I didn't want to see any weakness in me. I mean, everything in the Marine Corps is about having power. I mean, it's not about saying, "Hey, let's just put down our guns and surrender." I mean, it's like if this gun doesn't work, get a bigger one. I mean, if that doesn't work, call in an airstrike or an artillery mission. I mean, it's always trying to get more power and more power. And that's how I lived my life. That's what I thought. And I thought alcohol was actually doing that for me. And for a while it did. As Joe said, it was a solution that almost worked. I mean, it almost worked.
Well, we also learn that as we go on, that when we hit something that is that offensive, like what it was to you, we've hit pay dirt.
Oh boy, it's
like we get a client who does that, and you go like, oh, okay, and now we can kind of just set up camp and work around this for a while because there's a lot here.
Yeah. Yep. So true.
I just have this image of we travel back in time and somebody reads the portion of Bill's letter at the beginning of our Thursday night thing, and Alan follows it up by going, "Nope, no way."
Maybe for civilians.
Well, this brings to mind, or it's been on my mind, is I was my first real sponsee who I took through the steps, and I probably put the most, I had the most kind of emotional and time investment into working with. Let me go the other day, and he said he needs somebody who's more religious and spiritual. He's started going to church again, and I think there was some combination of that, and then also I just wasn't giving him enough to do. I think that there's maybe something he needs more quests, now that he's got 18 months or so. And, you bringing up your sponsor, Thom, Alan, and he gave you that reading to look at. It just reminds me, when I want to work with more people, and it was really fulfilling, me doing that. And I just need to, there always needs to be an action. I think, we always need to be doing something. Yeah.
Did you take it personally at all?
Well, the way it came about wasn't the most fun. I wouldn't give him a ride to the meeting, and he got pissed off at me. But I think it was I think there was something deeper there that we were addressing.
Listen, that's to the point. See, that's exactly what emotional sobriety is about. See, and that was an opportunity to talk to him about that. See, this is what we're learning here is that the rubber meets the road when things don't go our way. How we respond to it is going to give you all kinds of opportunity to see where you're at in your development. Because if I'm able to somehow roll with punches, right, and to see what the opportunities are in my disappointment, right, then I'm in emotional sobriety. When I get pissed off and say, well, then screw you, I don't need you. I need someone who's going to do what I want them to do all the time. See, that's what he's saying. I want somebody more spiritual. But what he's really saying is, see, that's how he's kidding himself. He's saying, I want somebody that's going to do what I want them to do when I want them to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Isn't that the bottom line for so many of us?
Yeah. Well, and just that, and there's another way of looking at that too, because in the bigger picture, for most people, you're rare, Alan, that you're with your sponsor for 106 years or however long that is. It's like, but I see people that really need to shift from different sponsors. They just need, and sometimes it's because they outgrow them, but sometimes it's just because they just need different things. Even what you're saying, Patrick, if somebody needs given a lot of instruction and a lot of homework and stuff as a therapist or as a sponsor, I'm not the guy. I'm just not. I just don't do that very well. I've tried to do it for people when it's just not natural for me. So it's good for people to be able to move on.
I remember a guy in my home group. He would say, "Okay, I'll be your temporary sponsor, because if I do a half-assed job, you're going to outgrow me and need somebody else, and you'll be happy about that. And guess what? I'll be happy too."
So here's the big book he gave me 54 years ago.
Oh my God.
Wow. Treat it carefully. I don't want it to fall apart.
Oh my God, I got so many notes in here.
Oh,
It's
that's a second edition big book.
That's right,
Yeah.
new and revised.
Yeah.
Books. When we have books like that we've had for so long, they look like workbooks, don't they? When you open them up, it's like every blank space is covered. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
All my work with him it was in this book, and we spent a lot of time in it.
wow.
But the thing that I'm forever grateful with is he emphasized the program is not about. He says attending meetings is great, but the heart of the program is working the steps.
So yeah, what's going on Saturday, Thom?
Why inner child work matters, and it's my rediscovery of this powerful metaphor and this powerful therapy that made all the difference in the world for me early on. And this is the third time I've done the workshop in recent months, and every time it's different. We really get in there. We get really it's a good interactional group, small group, and I think people are getting a lot out of it. Good.
And then Joe, what's happening in your neck of the woods?
Friday is our part. Well, it's actually part 3 because Jim W. did the whole Bill Wilson's letter, sort of the history of it, what else was going on with Bill Wilson at the time on emotional sobriety. And then last week has been recorded. So if people want to find that, Growing in Understanding group, just Google Growing and Understanding group and you'll find it. And if this isn't your thing, we're going to have Alan and I think I'll really be focusing on perfectionism and how that seems like a road to emotional sobriety, but it just fail. People can join at 5:00 Eastern Time, 8 p.m. UK and Ireland, not 8 p.m., 10 p.m. UK or Ireland, 2:00 in the afternoon Pacific Time, and it's participatory. So we're going to riff for a little bit in the beginning, and then open it up to discussion and Q&A. So it's like this podcast, only you're actually in the room participating. So see you there.
Play. Yeah, I want to play. Let's go. Yeah.